we head to Big D, and that was the location, the Mavs and the Thunder. And I've never wanted to see the Thunder do well because I miss the Sonics, the Supersonics, and they're the old Supersonics. Some oil baron bought them and moved them to OKC. But that aside, that was the matchup. Game 4, Dallas looking to take a 3-1 lead. That was the setup. Did you watch? Probably not. But I watched because I have no life. I'm back to having no life. I had a life last week. I'm back to having no life. So I was watching, and former Clipper, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, 34 points, and Oklahoma puts Dallas in the Dust Bowl, 196 the final, and they have evened up that semifinal Western Conference Playoff Series 2-2. Chet Holmgren, who I'm surprised he hasn't broken yet, looking at his body. Chet Holmgren and Lou Dort, the great Lou Dort, each hit big three-point shots late in that game in the win, so the teams end up splitting a pair on each other's home court. Game 5 on Hump Day back in Oklahoma City. The better story, though, is in the losing locker room. Better stories in the losing locker room, so that's where we'll begin. And the question, as we discuss, the question is, what the heck went wrong for the Mavericks in this loss at home? They were up most of the game. They had control, not control of the game, but they had a decent lead. They kept the opponent, the Thunder, at bay until the late stages of the fourth quarter. So I've got Earth, Porky Pig, and OnlyFans. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make a rocket, which is what many of the Dallas players were riding. Well, more of a comet, the vomit comet there late in that game. And for some of these guys, the entire game. So, the Mavericks, you don't need me to tell you that if you're someone who cares about that team, they suffered a power outage in this game. Kyrie Irving and Luka, the two big headliners, they get paid a lot of money to dribble the basketball. So these two guys sucked at a time you cannot suck the entire game. The entire game. Now, if you're a box score reader, you say, well, what are you talking about, Maller? You didn't play in the NBA. Luka Doncic had a triple-double. Well, I'm not a stat humper. So if you're a stat humper, you're excited about that. Whee! Whoop-de-damn-do. He had a triple-double. A lot of emptiness in that triple-double for Luka. He shot 30%, for example, from the floor. 30%. Now, if you make 3 out of every 10 shots, that ain't good. If you're a baseball player, you're a Hall of Famer. If you're a basketball player and you make 3 out of every 10 shots, you've done something terribly wrong. And that was Luka in this game. And not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. How about 7 turnovers? 7 of them. And down the stretch, this is when the thing fell apart. Came apart at the seams for Dallas. The Mavericks had a 6-point lead. Now, that's not a massive lead. That's not a huge lead, 6-point lead. But it was 86-80 at the 5:30 mark of the fourth quarter. Close the game out, right? And go back and forth. The end of the game, the final 5.5 minutes, Luka and Kyrie scored 1 total point. The final 5.5 minutes, up 6, was 0 for 4 combined, 0 for 4 from the floor. And Kyrie Irving in particular played like his worldview on the earth. Kyrie played like he thinks the earth is. It was a world B flat for Kyrie Irving there. A clunker. A dreadful performance. Irving passive, not aggressive, not passive-aggressive. He was just passive. And he finished the game with 9 points, took 11 shots, only made 4 of them. And Gilgeous-Alexander, the former Clipper, was good. He was the top player on the court to close out the game. He had 8 points in that stretch, while Kyrie and Luka combined for 1 point. Now speaking of trust, we're going to leave the Dallas OKC series. We're going to put that off to the side because the other series in the Western Conference, the other side of the Western bracket. Now, when I was last year, Minnesota was kicking ass. Minnesota was doing very well. And then they went out on their home court and gagged. They channeled some of the great debacles in Timberwolf history there as they lose at home back-to-back and really not even that close to Denver. Now, I bring this up because Michael Malone, that's told the basketball coach, Michael Malone made a diss track of his own team. And he had DeAndre Jordan, who's like a trophy, kind of like a mascot for the Nuggets at this point, DeAndre Jordan. Like, he passed it out to the team. But the Nuggets, Michael Malone, signed his name on it, and it was all the rage, the diss track. And it had people like Stephen A. Smith and Charles Barkley and other television pundits who ripped the Nuggets and slammed them after the first two games. And then Denver came back and won. So the question, they won the last two. So the question is, how much of the Nuggets media diss track from Michael Malone fueled Nikola Jokic and the comeback against Minnesota? So I've seen a lot of things written about this. I've seen a lot of things said about this the last couple of days here. This makes for a good story. It also makes, I'm going to go 0%. 0%, right? As how much of the Nuggets rallying back was because of a clip that was passed around on people's phones of national pundits ripping the Denver basketball team. I'll go 0%. You got to be the Joker if you think otherwise here. Now, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were able to flip the script with a third wing that came on here to help them out. But to me, that's not the story. The story here, and I have a theory, that Ant Edwards, the star, who had a massive stat line in the last game, but his teammates in Minnesota, you watch the way they played the last couple of games of this series, and it was back to Timber Puffs. Timber goes the basketball team there. They were caught nibbling. And there's an old line that's been passed from generation to generation in sports. It's don't eat the cheese. You've heard it before. Don't eat the cheese. Minnesota was like Porky Pig, gobbling. They weren't just nibbling. They were gobbling. The rat poison is what they were doing. They were celebrating the arrival of the Minnesota basketball team there for their play, and they got caught staring right at their own reflection in the mirror. Boy, do I look good. Look at me in the mirror. And then they went out and got punched by Denver in those last couple of games. So now it's a best of three situation. And who has the road court advantage? Well, that would be Minnesota in the next game. They have the road court advantage. Now, while we're at it, we're going to move away from pro bouncy ball because there's a story that I was observing while I was making my way back to the West Coast there. And we're going to spin off to Cincinnati, NFL style here to Cincinnati. And I was reading on the plane because I had a lot of time to kill. I was reading a story about Joe Burrow. That's a quarterback for the Cincinnati team. Joe Burrow has spent the past several months since his season ended prematurely because of injury. Joe Burrow spent several months focusing on weight training and nutrition. And this is a story that was being written, that was written. I read it. And as a result, he is said to be, quote, definitely bigger this offseason. So Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow getting stronger as he works on his chiseled body this offseason. Is that a big deal, a little deal, or no deal? So I'll go first. I'm going to put this in the no deal with a shoulder shrug. So not only is it a no deal, but you shrug your shoulders. That's what I'm doing with that. And we still have, by my count, we still have roughly 2 months before training camp opens up in mid-July. So this story it's premature. That's the first thought I have. Secondly, the other thought is it's a spring training-like storyline that we get often in baseball. One of those annoying, meaningless rituals associated with the offseason. But no, typically we don't get this until the start of training camp. But maybe I'm wrong on this, but as a pro athlete, you're kind of like an OnlyFans model or a hooker. You're selling your body. No one thinks you're that smart. You know, you're an athlete. They think of you as someone that has great physical attributes, right? Just in general. So Joe Burrow, nobody's going to say Joe Burrow is going to be a Mensa. He's not. He happens to be good at throwing a football around. So congratulations. And the professional athlete, you sell your body for money, and some people love the applause, but most just love the money. The expectation is, and this is just across the board, is that you will stay in shape, you'll be in top physical condition, and you don't have to be chiseled out of stone, but you can't be a big fat, blob. You can't be that. Now, when you do radio, you can be whatever you want. As long as the pipes are working, you're good to go. But we like Joe Burrow. We do like Joe Burrow. I just loathe these type of stories. And I saw this, and I kept realizing, well, this got to be a gag. This can't, it's May. What are we doing here? It's a May story, but it's usually a story we get in July when you got to fill time before exhibition games happen and people start getting hurt. But if Joe Burrow plays well, I'll tell you how this is going to play out. If Joe Burrow goes out there and plays well, he will be celebrated after the fact for this. It'll be like, oh, see, the reason Burrow's playing well is because he worked out and got in shape and blah, blah. He's bigger and stronger and faster and all that. Now, if he goes out and struggles, he spent too much time in the weight room. He's too strong. He overdid it. So guarantee that's how this is going to play out.